This little boy has been missing not just a few days or weeks or even months. That boy's been missing for years. And it's only now that his disappearance is coming to light.
Hayden Ian Lee Mannis was born on May 19, 2015, to his father, Gary Mannis, and his mother, Terry Williams. He was a happy and sweet kid who liked to go playing at the park and skateboarding. Hayden wanted to be a firefighter when he grew up, and one of his favorite things to do was help his grandfather when fixing his car, as well as helping him fix other items around the home. When the little boy was just a year old, in 2016, his mother and father lost custody after a drug test showed that they had been using cocaine. That same year, police had also found Hayden and his father in a motel room that was littered with drug paraphernalia and heroin baggies. Once he was removed from his parents' care, Hayden went to live with his grandfather, Gary Mannis, whom he affectionately called Pawpaw. And the two quickly grew close. There, Hayden was happy and well taken care of. But a year and a half later, around the time that Hayden was about to turn 3, his father, Dustin, completed his court-ordered probation as well as his drug treatment and counseling. So a judge had granted Dustin custody back of his son Hayden and ordered that he be returned to his father immediately. Hayden's mother, Terry, was still incarcerated at this time. So Child Services had agreed with the court that Dustin should get custody of his son back. But Dustin's father, Gary, did not. According to him, he had told Child Services that his son, Dustin, was a drug addict and begged them not to give Hayden back. Gary had also tried to say this during the court hearing, but according to him, he was not allowed to speak. And since Dustin had done exactly what the courts had asked of him, they returned Hayden. So for a while after that, in 2018 and in 2019, Dustin would take his son to visit with Gary and the rest of the family from time to time. But after a fight between Dustin and Gary, those visits got farther and farther apart. Then they stopped altogether after a Christmas get-together in 2019. And even though Hayden's relatives would text Dustin inviting the father and son to family gatherings, Dustin would tell them that he would try to make it, but then never show. His family said that they tried at least once a month to see Hayden and his father, but to no avail. Then, in August of 2021, Dustin would inform his Aunt Barb that he was moving out of town. He also said that he was happy and doing really well. Dustin then told his aunt that he would try to attend the next family Christmas get-together, but that would never end up happening. Soon, Dustin stopped replying to the family's text messages altogether, which greatly worried them. In Dustin's final text message to his Aunt Barb in May of 2023, he said, "Hey Aunt Barb, I promise on everything all is well. I promise you. I've just been having a lot going on. Try to work on my family that I'm making and whatnot. I appreciate you reaching out and checking, but I'm just doing what I promised my mom I'd do when she was on her deathbed. And that was look out for what makes me happy and doing whatever it may be to keep myself happy. I'm doing good and I'm doing right. And I'm working on making the family I've always wanted." So over time, his family had grown accustomed to not seeing or hearing from Dustin and Hayden, choosing to believe that Dustin was just simply too busy or no longer wanted to see them. But that changed a few months ago in September of 2024, when Hayden's 2 great-grandmothers met at a grocery store in Muncie and began discussing the boy. One of the great-grandmothers said that Dustin had told her a few years ago that he had lost custody of Hayden to Child Services. This was news to the other great-grandmother, so she immediately went home and called up Gary, telling him that something was not right and she was worried about the boy. Gary was then said to have reported it to CPS the very next day. At the same time, another family member called the police and asked them to check up on Hayden. When this welfare check was performed, police would find Dustin, but his son was nowhere to be seen. And the father would not tell detectives the truth about where Hayden was either. He first said that Child Protective Services had taken Hayden away in 2022, which authorities knew was not the case. Then, Dustin attempted to tell officers that the little boy had gone back to living with his mother, but they knew that that also was not true. Even though the last time family claims to have seen Hayden was at a Christmas gathering in 2019, investigators have said that they believe the last time that Hayden was seen was sometime in 2020, though they have yet to be able to pinpoint an exact date. So 5 years. Now, even though Dustin did not have a good answer as to where Hayden was, he was not arrested yet at that point. This would change a few months later in November when he was pulled over for a traffic violation. According to the officer, Dustin appeared very nervous, almost to the point of fear. The father admitted that he'd recently been questioned by law enforcement in regards to his missing son Hayden. During this traffic stop, officers would find heroin and a syringe in Dustin's pocket, and some methamphetamine in a cigarette box. He was arrested and charged with possession of a narcotic drug, possession of methamphetamine, and possession of paraphernalia. Dustin would spend a few weeks in jail before one of his grandmothers came to his rescue and bonded him out. Then, just a few days after that, on December 15th, 2024, Dustin fatally overdosed. So now the police's main person of interest in regards to Hayden's disappearance was gone. They have said that they are still hopeful that there are others out there that have information in regards to the boy's whereabouts. The search for Hayden has since taken authorities to various locations, and there have even been searches done using cadaver dogs. One of the places that has been searched is a home along East Nancy Lane in Muncie, where Dustin and Hayden were believed to have lived with Dustin's ex-girlfriend, Crystal Hall, and her family. When police were at the house, they would search the inside as well as the backyard. They also removed several items from the home, including a piece of flooring from one of the bedrooms. Investigators also went out to a home in Eaton, where Dustin was said to have lived periodically as recently as last year. Several interviews were additionally conducted with Dustin's ex-girlfriend Crystal and her father, who had lived in the home where they searched. Interestingly enough, since authorities' investigation started into Hayden's disappearance, Crystal and her father have sold their home and moved out of state. But according to the father, this move had been planned long before he and his daughter started speaking with police. And they have both been cooperative with investigators, yet they know nothing about Hayden's whereabouts or disappearance. Though that's not what one woman named Lisa Green, whose aunt was previously married to Dustin's father, Gary, has said. She has come out publicly saying that Dustin admitted in a recording at the time that he had been arrested on his drug charges that he had killed his son Hayden, and his ex-girlfriend Crystal knew all about it. According to Lisa, Dustin and Crystal had tortured Hayden by putting him in hot baths, hitting him with dog chains, starving him, and putting him inside a dog cage. Then, when he got so bad that he was clearly close to death, losing all bodily functions, Dustin and Crystal argued about what to do with him. Lisa continued by saying that Dustin dragged his son out of the dog cage, lifted him up into the air, and slammed him into the ground, killing him. Then, he and Crystal put Hayden's body into the closet for a few days. From there, his body was placed into a box, with 6 trash bags wrapped around it. That box was then buried in the backyard, where it was left to rot for 6 months. Then, according to Lisa, Crystal had taken the box out of the backyard and to her job at a gas station, where she had discarded of it in the dumpster. But none of this information has been officially confirmed yet. This is just alleged. Lisa has additionally said that she was the one to initially become worried about Hayden's whereabouts, and she was the one to first contact authorities. Hayden's father was also selling Hayden's toys on Facebook Marketplace at the end of 2019, including things like his Nintendo DS and his iPad, things that a child of that age would not just willingly give up. Several of Dustin's family members have recently heard the horrifying rumors about the torture and neglect that Hayden was subjected to inside the home. Due to this, they no longer believe that the little boy is alive. Oddly, Dustin's aunt, Shelley Sewell, and other family members described Dustin as being kind and gentle with kids. Shelley said, "He was so sweet and good with children. Never in a million years would you think he'd put a hand on any child, let alone his own son."
I miss him dearly.
Hayden's grandfather and 3 of his aunts met with 13 Investigates to share their grief.
Oh, God.
To ask the public for help.
Just give us some answers.
And to try to make sense of how a 4.5-year-old just disappeared.
When's the last time you saw Hayden?
Christmas Eve, 2019, at our family gathering.
He was getting presents. He was excited.
That was the last time.
Where's Hayden?
nobody can come up with Hayden. The last person that was responsible for him couldn't provide any information about where he was. And that's when we realized, I think,
Something terrible had happened.
yeah.
While detectives haven't released any specific information in regards to their investigation, the Delaware County prosecutor, Eric Hoffman, has said that the information that they've gathered in Hayden's case is very disturbing and haunts him every day. He also no longer believes that Hayden is alive based on the evidence. If anyone has any information about Hayden or his disappearance, please contact the Delaware County Sheriff's Investigations Division at 765-747-7881. Well, thank you for listening to Hayden's story today. It's almost certain that Hayden is no longer alive. But I'm assuming if Dustin really did confess to these horrible things that he and his girlfriend did to his son, then hopefully police are just trying to gather enough physical evidence at this point to press charges against Crystal. Sadly, if what's being said about what happened to Hayden after he was killed is true, then it's likely he will never be found, which is incredibly heartbreaking.
6-year-old's body was found in a trash bag buried behind the Schroers Rose Hill home last September, but investigators believe the 6-year-old actually died at the end of 2020. An autopsy report suggests she died from suffocation.
Natalie Marie Garcia was born on July 14, 2014, to her mother, Krista Helm. She was a sweet little girl who was always happy and smiling. Natalie loved school, and she also loved eating food, especially pizza. Now, little Natalie had 2 biological sisters whom she lived with, and the girl's mother, Krista, had lost custody of all 3 of them back in 2018 as a result of her drug habit. Then, a year later in 2019, the girls would be adopted by Christina and Joseph Schroer, who lived in Rose Hill, Kansas. At the time of her adoption, even though the little girl was already 5 years old, her new parents decided to change her name from Natalie Marie Garcia to Kennedy Jean Schroer. Throughout the years, the Schroers had fostered multiple children in their home, so when Natalie's biological mother found out that they would be adopting her girls, she felt a sense of relief, knowing that her children would be better taken care of and have the opportunity for a better life than she could currently offer them. The Schroers also had 2 other adopted children that were living in the home with Natalie and her siblings. Years later, on September 10th, 2024, around 7 p.m., police would respond to the Schroers' home that was located at 1406 North Meeker Court in Rose Hill, Kansas. This was due to a report that Christina was suicidal and had locked herself in the bedroom, possibly with a gun. After they'd been there for close to 45 minutes, officers were finally able to convince Christina to open the door. She stated that she'd taken a bunch of pills and her heart medication. Christina then began crying and telling officers that her life was over and nobody would ever look at her the same again. Next, she made the startling claim that one of her daughters was fucking psychotic and a danger. According to Christina, due to this child, she previously had to remove 2 other children from their home out of concerns for their safety. She then went on to tell officers what she believed this child had done to Natalie back in December of 2020. Christina stated that this child, we'll call her Child A, choked another child, Child B, to the point where she was unconscious. When the mother then went to try to revive Child B using CPR, Child A tried to stop her from doing so. Therefore, Christina had put Child A into a bedroom with Natalie so she could finish reviving Child B. Once the mother had successfully revived Child A, she could not figure out where in the home Natalie was. She did, however, notice a box at the top of the stairs that had a small crib on it and some heavy blankets. Christina told officers that she had taken these objects off of the box, and when she did, she opened the flaps, looked inside, and saw 6-year-old Natalie unconscious. She also had no pulse. The little girl was extremely hot, so the adoptive mother took her out of the box and brought her into the shower, trying to cool her down. She then began trying to give her CPR. However, it didn't work because the little girl was already dead. According to Christina, she called her husband Joseph, who wasn't home at the time, and told him that she was taking Natalie to the hospital. Then she wrapped the little girl up in sheets and put her in the car. While Christina had said that she was thinking of taking Natalie to the hospital, instead, she just drove. She claimed she really didn't know what to do, and instead of going to the emergency room or to the police station, she would just drive back home with Natalie's body still in the car. Then, when she got back home, Christina grabbed some of her things and left again. But she would end up back at the house a little while later, and at that point, she took Natalie's body into the backyard where she buried her. Christina stated she believed all of this had occurred on December 10th, 2020. Upon telling her story to the authorities, Christina was sent to Wesley Hospital in Wichita for treatment, as they were afraid she might try to take herself out of this world. Police then obtained a search warrant for the Schroers' property and brought dogs in to search for Natalie's body. And they would end up finding her not long after. She was buried in the backyard about 2 feet down, just as Christina had said. The little girl's body was wrapped up in 2 black trash bags. A coroner later determined that Natalie, whose body was just bones at this point, had likely died from suffocation, and her death was ruled as a homicide. Following their discovery, police would speak with one of Natalie's sisters at the Rose Hill police station in the presence of her father, Joseph. This was the little girl whom Christina had tried to pin the blame for Natalie's death on. At the start of the questioning, the little girl would tell officers that she had no idea what had happened to Natalie. And she began crying, stating that she missed her sister and didn't want to talk about her. After being reassured, the girl would go on to say that she used to hurt her sisters, mostly hit them or punched them in the back when they called her names or got into her things. When she was asked about playing in boxes, hiding in boxes, or if anyone had ever gone into a box then not come out alive, Natalie's sister immediately shut down and told authorities that they had to speak to her mother. So detectives decided that it was a good point to take a break in the interrogation. While they were out of the room, Joseph would say that the little girl opened up to him about what had happened to Natalie. The young girl informed Joseph that one night while he had been working the 3rd shift, Christina had made Natalie get inside a box because she was moving around in bed too much. This box was just big enough that if the girls curled up into a tight ball, they would fit perfectly inside. Making the children go into boxes was a common form of punishment in the home. They had to go inside for 10 minutes, and if they could be quiet that entire 10 minutes, then they were allowed to come back out. So that night in December, Natalie had been forced into a box, and she was allowed to come back out if she was quiet for the entire 10 minutes. But because the little girl kept making noises and moving around inside the box, Christina decided to stack a crib and heavy blankets on top of it. Now, Natalie's sister had not been in the room when Christina put Natalie inside the box. However, Christina called the sister into the room shortly after. When she did, the little girl told detectives that the mother grabbed her by the throat, then threw her to the floor. Christina then told the little girl that it would be her turn in the box next, and made her sit next to it. Shortly after that, Natalie, who had been making noises in the box up until this point, stopped completely. This made her sister worried, so Christina kicked the box over to let Natalie out. But instead, the girl's limp blue body tumbled out. Christina panicked and began trying to perform CPR on Natalie. When this didn't work, she instructed the other child to keep an eye on their siblings while she left the home. When Christina returned to the home sometime later, the little girl claimed that she no longer had Natalie with her. Upon Christina's return, she also showed Natalie's sister a picture on her phone of children strapped to beds. Christina informed her that the children were being tortured and she would be next. Following this interview with detectives, both of Natalie's sisters were placed into protective custody. But the arrest of Christina Schroer and her husband Joseph in connection with Natalie's death would not come for a few more months. They weren't arrested until February 5th, 2025, just a few weeks ago. Christina was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, child abuse, felony theft, forgery, Medicaid fraud, and desecration of a corpse. Joseph was charged with suspicion of child abuse, interference with law enforcement, felony theft, and Medicaid fraud. Police had uncovered a lot in the 5 months between the discovery of Natalie's body and the parents' arrests. First, after detectives had confiscated and examined Christina's cell phone, they found that on August 31st, 2024, she had made a number of incriminating searches. These online searches included signs of a sociopath in a 4-year-old, neurotesting for sociopath child psychology, criminal law attorney, can drinking Visine kill you? Is drinking Flonase deadly? How to overdose on pills, overdose symptoms? Can I donate my body to science? And get money for a lawyer fast. Authorities also found thousands of text messages on Christina's phone that revealed the physical, mental, and emotional abuse that the entire Schroer family had been going through at her hands. These texts showed that the children's meals had been rationed inside the home. Christina would use food against the children to gain their compliance. They had also been tortured and isolated from the outside world. And while in the home, their every move had been monitored through a number of video cameras. In one of the messages that police discovered, Christina chastises her husband Joseph for placing a bucket inside a closet where the girls were forced to stay. She was angry because he had placed the bucket in there, yet they chose to urinate on the floor instead. In a text sent on January 9th, 2023, Christina talks about how one of the children broke a bowl. And she says to her husband, "I don't care if she told you or not. I'm about to punch her in the face. I'm done. These girls have me on edge. I'm going to kill everyone soon." She had also texted her husband Joseph on January 16th, 2023, about putting one of the girls in a dog cage to sleep for the night. Apparently, along with using boxes as punishment, Christina had also frequently used the dog cage to punish the children. There was one time that she had even forced 2 of the girls to go inside a box together on top of one another. The adoptive mother also told her husband constantly through text messages sent between 2021 and 2024 that he was choosing the adopted girls over her and she didn't want them anymore. She wanted to get rid of them. Then Christina was also said to have told 2 of Natalie's sisters that Natalie was burning in hell, and if they weren't good, they were going there too. A past foster child of the Schroers would tell detectives that he had run away from their home when he was 16. This had come after he flipped out and attacked Christina because he believed that she was trying to drown one of the girls in the bathtub. The child was in the tub on her knees, crying and asking her mother to stop. According to him, the slightest things would set the mother off, and she was frequently yelling at and hitting her kids. A friend of Christina's had additionally spoken with authorities, and she said that around the time the COVID pandemic hit, she had noticed a big change in Christina. It was around that time that the children always seemed to be in trouble, were not allowed to leave their room, and never left the house. They didn't even go to doctor's appointments and had been pulled out of school under the guise that Christina was going to homeschool them. Upon this friend questioning Christina about where Natalie had gone, she was told that the little girl had been sent back into the state's care. Now, back when Christina had pulled Natalie and her sisters out of school in January of 2020, she had told school authorities that one of the children in her home had brain swelling that wasn't getting better, so she needed to be protected from germs. Therefore, none of the girls could attend school out of fear of getting this other child sick. But Christina had told everyone else that Natalie and her sisters were pulled out of school and were now being homeschooled because they had behavioral issues. According to her, the children had been violent, disruptive, and were even eating trash during the school day. Christina also reported that one of the girls had harmed her sisters, was hurting the household pets, and had threatened to kill her family. But according to everyone else in the girl's life, including child services, she had never had any instances of violence or making threats. It would be discovered that Christina would often fabricate medical ailments that the girls and past foster children had. She did this in order to get them prescribed medications, which would increase her amount of money that she was given by the government each month per child. It's believed that all the stories of violence and misbehavior that Christina had come up with over the years was also so that she could just get higher monthly payments for them, as no one else had witnessed any type of behavior like this in the children. So it's pretty clear that Christina, and possibly her husband Joseph too, were very money hungry. The couple had collected over $23,000 in benefits just for Natalie. There was also about $3,800 worth of Medicaid benefits that they had received after her death, fraudulently. Now, much of the money that the couple was receiving for taking care of these children was going towards Christina's gambling problem. According to family and friends, Christina was constantly shuffling money between her bank accounts. And she was always short on money, making those accounts go negative. Additionally, when the house was searched, police found bankruptcy papers and discovered that Christina had a lifetime total of nearly $4.2 million of coin-in from slot machines played at the Seven Clans First Council Casino Hotel. Now, some of this could have been reinvested winnings, but it's still an incredibly high amount nonetheless. According to the casino, her winnings had totaled around $362,000. Christina also seemed to be the boss in her household, and she would allow her husband to have $200 each week out of his own paycheck. She then kept the rest. Other individuals who have spoken with detectives since the discovery of Natalie's body have said that Christina seemed to have little to no interest in her. According to a social worker, when Christina spoke about the kids, she often referred to them like they were just objects around the home. She had very little warmth towards them. Now, at this point, it's unclear exactly what Joseph thought had happened to Natalie following her death. However, he did get a text message from his wife Christina that day telling him that something was going on at the home, but she had it all under control. Christina also informed him that one of the children had been choked and someone was taken by ambulance to a psychiatric facility. Apparently, just weeks before Natalie's body had been found on August 30th, 2024, a social worker had gone out to the home. This came after they had received a report that one child had killed another. At the time, Christina had just told the social worker that all her children were alive and that the girls just like to tell stories. Then she said that the worker did not need to see the child to determine their welfare. Which, yeah, that's exactly how that works. You do need to see the child. But the social worker apparently didn't think so, because she simply closed out the case due to insufficient evidence. There were also prior allegations of abuse and neglect that had been made against Christina. These spanned from 2016 to 2018, before she had ever even officially adopted the girls. However, all the claims had come back as unsubstantiated. In January of 2025, after Natalie's body had been discovered, a new foster parent of her sisters emailed a caseworker with a photo of a storage box that they had been using for Christmas decorations. The little girls had freaked out and began screaming when they saw it, saying, "Please do not make us get in the boxes. Please, please, we will never fight again." The foster parent said that it took over an hour to calm the girls down. After that, the children pointed to the edges of the box where the lid goes and said, "Those really hurt when the door is closed and locked." A black storage box, matching the one that the foster parents had sent a picture of, was found in the basement of the home where the girls had lived with Christina and Joseph. Natalie's biological mother, Krista Helm, spoke publicly after the girl's body was discovered. She questioned how one of her children had been unaccounted for so long, asking why the Kansas Department of Children and Families was not checking up on her. Krista is now trying to raise funds, both to bury Natalie and also to hire a lawyer so she can fight for custody of her other two daughters.
But something died inside of me September 13th.
That's the day Helm was asked for a DNA sample to connect her to the child remains unearthed in Rose Hill.
All of the evil that they've done is about to come to light. I've been praying for the truth to be revealed, and it's coming out.
Helm's two other daughters that were removed from her custody were also adopted into the Schroer household. Helm has yet to speak to them, and she was told they were taken out of the Schroer home by law enforcement. She says she can only wonder what they went through, but wants to be the one responsible for their healing.
It's going to take so much work to heal those girls, and I don't want anybody else to do it. I want them to be where they belong.
A vow Helm hopes to keep, the arrest coming on her older daughter's birthday. Her message to her as she hopes to regain custody of her two surviving daughters and the body of her Natalie to give her a proper funeral.
Happy birthday. I love you. I'm coming. And I hope I see you soon.
Well, thank you for listening to Natalie's story today. I'm baffled how no one from Child Services had checked up on this little girl in 4 years. Then, when they received a case stating that something awful had happened in the home, they went out there and didn't even check on any of the girls before they closed out that case. It's outrageous.
Turn your attention to December 7th of 2019.
Yeah.
Does that day stand out to you?
Yes.
Why?
This is the date that Harmony passed away.
The last confirmed sighting of 5-year-old Harmony Montgomery was on September 11, 2019, but she wouldn't be reported as missing until over 2 years later in November of 2021. Not even a year before she disappeared, in February of 2019, Harmony had been placed into the custody of her father, Adam Montgomery, and his wife, Harmony's stepmother, Kayla Montgomery. Now, Adam has a long criminal past, and he struggles with drug addiction. However, his background was never checked, nor was any type of home check done before he got full custody of Harmony. He never should have gotten any kind of custody of that little girl. When Harmony was born in June of 2014, she'd been placed right into foster care, as her mother, Crystal Sorey, was also a drug addict and unable to properly care for the little girl. She had been in and out of her daughter's life since then. But now it was November of 2021, and Crystal had been unable to get a hold of Harmony since April of 2019. She said she had tried multiple times, but Adam would never let her speak to her.
Where did you think Harmony was for the last 2 years?
I thought she was with her dad, and he was just being a jerk, really. That's what I hoped was happening, you know, but in my heart I knew something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Like, he was going to extremes to block me and make sure that I couldn't contact her or anything, or even to the point, like, once his family started calling DCYF and he knew, he then cut them off, and then I couldn't even get information from them, you know, because at least I could get information about what was going on through them. Couldn't even get anything from them. He literally cut anybody that questioned him about how he treated Harmony or what he was doing. He cut them off.
So the search officially began for Harmony on New Year's Eve of 2021. When police went to speak with him, Adam claimed that he had dropped Harmony back off with her mother. Though this was clearly untrue, Crystal had no idea where she was, and Adam and his wife Kayla's stories did not match up as to when the last time they had seen Harmony was. Adam's uncle, Kevin Montgomery, said that he had not seen Harmony or his nephew since late 2019. The last time he had seen Harmony, she had a black eye, and when he asked what happened, Adam told him that he had bashed her around the house. Uncle Kevin told police that in addition to the physical abuse that Adam inflicted on Harmony, he would also make his daughter scrub the toilet with her toothbrush and stand in the corner for hours on end. With this new information, Adam was placed under arrest in June of 2022 and charged with second-degree assault. Adam's wife Kayla was also arrested in early 2022 on a felony welfare fraud charge. And in order to reduce her own sentence, she finally decided to speak up and tell police what had happened to Harmony. And Kayla's charge stemmed from the fact that she had obtained $1,500 in food stamp benefits from December 2019 to June 2021, even though Harmony was not alive. So after Kayla spoke with the police and gave them new information, Adam, in addition to his second-degree assault charge, was also charged with second-degree murder, tampering with witnesses or informants, abuse of a corpse, and falsifying physical evidence. And what Kayla said was that on December 7, 2019, her husband Adam had repeatedly punched his daughter Harmony in the head after she had a bathroom accident in the car that they were currently living in due to recently getting evicted. Now, living in this car was Adam, Kayla, Harmony, and Adam and Kayla's 2 sons, Declan and Seamus, who were both under the age of 3. After Adam had murdered his daughter, he had concealed her body in a duffel bag and toted it around Manchester for months afterwards. Adam's trial was scheduled to start in November of 2023, but would end up getting pushed back to February of 2024. When the trial finally did start after the jury was picked, the judge had them go on a bus trip all around Manchester to see the different locations pertaining to Harmony's case. So on the first day of Adam's trial, February 7th, he admitted to 2 of the lesser charges in the case, falsifying physical evidence and abuse of a corpse. But he still proclaimed his innocence as far as killing Harmony, and Adam's defense team was trying to pin the blame on Kayla instead, saying that Harmony had actually died on December 6th while she was alone with Kayla. And being the absolute coward that he is, Adam Montgomery did not show up for a single day of his own trial. The prosecution made their opening statement.
He grabbed the duffel bag and he stuffed Harmony's body inside. That's when Harmony became the dead girl in the duffel bag. He did that to her. That's what he made her.
It was then described that Adam had beat her over the fact that she had a bathroom accident, something that she had no control over. Harmony was actually potty trained at a very young age, and she loved being clean and took pride in the fact that she was a big girl who didn't have accidents. However, it sounded like Harmony's needs were not being met at all, such as adequate amounts of time to go to the bathroom. And due to the fact that Harmony had been ripped out of a loving foster home and placed with her angry and abusive father, of course her toilet habits were going to slip. She was terrified of him. The prosecution went on to speak about how after Adam had punched Harmony in the head, he drove to Burger King for breakfast while the little girl lay dying in the back seat. Adam had then toted her body around Manchester for months before finally making a plan to dispose of her body for good. Adam believed that if there was no evidence of what he had done to Harmony, then he would get away with it. Luckily, he didn't. Adam's public defender, James Brooks, admitted that his client had helped to cover up Harmony's murder, but he was not the one who had done it. It was Kayla, the evil stepmother. She is evil, but she's not as evil as Adam. After opening statements came witness testimony. Crystal Sorey, Harmony's biological mother, took the stand to answer questions from the prosecution. Crystal testified that she had lost custody of Harmony in 2014 because she was struggling with drug addiction and she was not in the right frame of mind to take care of her. Crystal had gained custody back of Harmony in March of 2016, but only 10 months after that, Harmony was back in foster care. Emotionally, Crystal said that she had last seen her daughter on a video call in April of 2019, but after that, Adam had cut off all contact. She had tried multiple times to reach out to both Adam and Kayla, but couldn't get a hold of either one of them. Crystal went on to describe her daughter as amazing, rambunctious, and very smart. So this was not brought up in the trial. However, Crystal had claimed that she had conflicting court dates, which was why she couldn't be there for the court date where custody of Harmony was given to Adam. However, the adoptive parents of Harmony's brother Jameson said this is not true, and none of Jameson's biological family showed up to the court hearing. Since Harmony's disappearance, Uncle Kevin has also come forward and said that Crystal knew about the black eyes that Adam had given to Harmony back in June of 2019 because Kevin had personally told her himself, but she didn't do anything. Someone else who knew Harmony very well testified in court, Michelle Rafferty, who was her foster mother for 3 different periods of time. Michelle first took Harmony into her home when she was only 2 months old. Michelle had been told that Harmony had a brain development disorder and she wasn't expected to live longer than 7 months. Both Crystal and Michelle spoke about how smart Harmony was, despite being diagnosed as a baby with a condition that would have resulted in a learning disability. But that diagnosis turned out to be very wrong, and Harmony was meeting every benchmark and succeeding. Michelle said about Harmony, "She was a loving child. She was very sweet, very happy, super social. She loved to be with people wherever she went. She left people happy, and you knew that you met her." Adam Montgomery's uncle, Harmony's great-uncle, Kevin Montgomery, was subpoenaed to testify against Adam at trial. And when he took the stand, he admitted that he did not want to be there that day. Uncle Kevin spoke about one day in June of 2019, about 6 months before Harmony was murdered. He had just returned back from being in Florida for 3 weeks to the Guilford Street house when he noticed that Harmony had a black eye.
And when you saw her in the kitchen, how did she look to you?
She had a black eye.
Can you describe it for us? How did the black eye look?
Full, like a raccoon's eye, black and blue.
Uncle Kevin asked Harmony what she had done to her eye, but before she could answer, Adam, who was standing behind her, told Uncle Kevin, "She didn't do anything. I bashed her around the effing house." And by she didn't do anything, I assume he means she didn't do anything to hurt her own eye. Not that she didn't do anything, because obviously that's why he was bashing her around the house, I would assume, if she did something wrong in his eyes. And then Kevin was asked how his nephew had made this statement. And he said, "To the best of my abilities, I would describe it as a cocky son of a bitch." Adam explained, as Kevin recalled, that he had put Harmony in charge of his infant son while he went to the bathroom. When he came back out, Harmony had her hand over the baby's mouth and nose, and Adam said the baby's lips were turning blue. Uncle Kevin said that he then told multiple people about this incident in order to get help, and he also called DCF. However, his claims were found to be unsubstantiated, of course. In Adam's trial, Kayla Montgomery was the star witness, and her testimony took place over 2 days. And even though she cried at times, most of the time when she was speaking about Harmony, she looked cold and uncaring. Under questioning, Kayla said that around 2 or 3 in the morning on December 7th, Harmony had had an accident in the car. Though she didn't recall whether it was poop or pee. This was while they were parked in the family's car at the Colonial Village Apartments. This is the parking lot that the Montgomerys stayed in their car, because their friend Anthony Bodero lived in the apartment right here. Kayla then said that because Harmony had an accident, this angered Adam, and he began punching her in the head. He ended up punching her 10 to 15 times. Kayla said she told Adam to stop, but he didn't. And afterwards, she didn't even change Harmony's clothes. Why? Because Adam told her not to, and she was too scared because he gave her a, quote, crazy eye. Kayla said after that, she did not go back to sleep. And around 7 o'clock the next morning, everybody was awake, and Adam was again angry about the smell in the car. The family then drove to the methadone clinic so that Adam and Kayla could get their doses. Kayla went in first, and then when she came back out, Adam went in and got his. When Adam came back to the car after getting his methadone dose, he again got angry that the car smelled. Adam, Kayla said, then screamed at Harmony, saying, "Why are you doing that? Why don't you tell us when you have to go?" And then he began punching her in the head. Then Adam drove the family to Burger King. Along the way, at all the traffic lights, Adam turned around and continued to punch Harmony in the head. She soon began to make a weird moaning noise, and Adam told Kayla, "I think I did something this time. I think I really hurt her." This is what the drive from the methadone clinic to the Burger King in Manchester looks like. And there are quite a few stoplights along the way, though we don't know how many were red. I'm sure Harmony got punched by Adam quite a few times along the way. Because as you can see, there are a lot of traffic lights.
And he started yelling at Harmony and kept hitting her in the head repetitively.
What was Harmony doing at that point when he started driving the vehicle?
She was crying a lot.
She was crying a lot?
Yeah. And she was making a weird noise.
Was she saying anything?
No.
And Kayla, I want you to walk the jurors through in as much detail as you can what happened on your route from Habit Opco to that Burger King.
Adam was getting really angry from Harmony peeing in the car, and he repetitively kept punching her on the way to Burger King, and there were a couple red lights, and when we were at red lights, he would go over the driver's seat, like in between the passenger seat, and he was just punching her repetitively in the head.
Between Habit Opco and the Burger King, Did the defendant say anything to Harmony?
I told her to shut up. Stop crying.
This is the Burger King that the Montgomerys drove to after they had gone to the methadone clinic. Kayla said that on the way here is when Adam had assaulted Harmony. In the backseat at the time with Harmony were her two brothers, one who was 2.5 years old and one who was 11 months old. Kayla said that when Adam struck Harmony, Harmony began to cry and the 11-month-old began to cry. She said that her older son didn't cry very often. He probably knew better because he probably knew that he was going to get in trouble or screamed at or hit or whatever by Adam. Kayla testified that she had put her arm up trying to get Adam to stop striking Harmony, but he gave her a look of pure evil and she just backed down.
Did you try to help Harmony while he was striking her?
Yes.
Tell the jurors what you did to help, to try to help.
I put my arm up and said to stop, but he looks at me and he gave me this look that was like evil. His crazy eyes. I didn't like it, and I couldn't stop him from hitting her because the look that he gave me was scary. I was scared. Once the family got to Burger King, they went through the drive-thru and ordered 3 breakfast sandwiches. Harmony was underneath a blanket so that nobody could see the awful injuries to her face. They then continued on to the Colonial Village apartments. Kayla claims that she fed the younger children the breakfast sandwich on the way back, and she placed another sandwich on Harmony's lap, thinking that Harmony was just sleeping and she would wake up later to eat it. And she told jurors that Adam would regularly put this blanket over the little girl's body when she was in the car so that nobody could see how badly bruised she was. Kayla would also say that Harmony had dried blood on her face that morning from the day before. Adam had assaulted her and nobody even cleaned the little girl's face up. So Kayla thought that Harmony was asleep underneath the blanket because she said that after Adam assaulted Harmony, she normally fell asleep. So once they got back to the Colonial Village apartments, Adam and Kayla would use some heroin and fentanyl. Kayla said they then left the apartment complex again a few hours later, though she doesn't really remember why. And when they did, the family's car, a Chrysler Sebring, died at the intersection of West and Elm Street. Now needing to have the car towed, Adam got out and tried to wake up Harmony. It was then that he discovered that she was dead. Kayla said that Adam was gently shaking Harmony, trying to get her to wake up, but she wouldn't, saying, "Baby girl, wake up, baby girl." When the family's Chrysler Sebring died, all the electronics went out, so Adam couldn't even open the trunk of the car. Instead, he went into the back seat and pulled down part of the seat to pull a red duffel bag out of the trunk. Adam then folded Harmony's body in half and put her inside the duffel bag. So even though there had been tears during some of Kayla's testimony, when it came to Harmony, she showed very little emotion. The tears only came for Kayla when she was talking about the things that had happened to her. While on the stand, Kayla admitted that she couldn't remember how many clothes or pairs of underwear they had packed for Harmony, and she said that they never washed her underwear. I don't know if that means they just threw them out and got new ones, or if they just made her wear dirty ones over and over. So the family had grabbed a few of their belongings and then walked back to the Colonial Village apartments. It's a very short walk. Once they got there, their friend drove them back to the car to get the rest of their things. After that, they would stay in the friend's car for a few nights, and during the night, Adam would take the duffel bag with Harmony's body in it out of the car and place it into the snowbanks. From there, they went to Kayla's mother's house, and Harmony's body was kept in a red and white cooler just outside her door in the communal hallway. And by the end of December 2019, the family had moved on to the Families in Transition shelter located on Lake Ave. There, Adam would tuck the duffel bag with Harmony's body in it up in the ceiling, and Kayla said it emitted a horrible smell. Harmony's body had been leaking fluids up inside the ceiling, and multiple people at the shelter had smelled it. This is the shelter that Adam, Kayla, and the 2 boys stayed at. And this is also where Adam stored Harmony's body up in the ceiling. Investigators came here after they realized that Adam had killed Harmony, and they were able to remove some of the ceiling tiles as evidence for his trial. But before he got caught, the family would end up moving to their apartment on Union Street.
Here, Adam would take Harmony's body out of the duffel bag, and he then placed her into the shower of the family's bathroom. From there, he turned on the hot water in an attempt to thaw out her body. So once Harmony's body was partially thawed, Kayla said that she used scissors to cut off her hoodie, while Adam used the scissors to cut off the little girl's leggings. Kayla said, "I was there in the beginning and I was there in the end." She also said she never saw any tools in the bathroom, though she knew that Adam had a small handsaw. So Adam dismembered Harmony's body in the bathtub, and later a plumber would have to come out to unclog the drain. Harmony's body was then put into a Catholic Medical Center's bag, filled with lime, as Adam thought this would help with the decomposition process, though it would not. Adam had also told Kayla that they should possibly use a NutriBullet because that would be a good way to get rid of Harmony's body. And Adam requested that Kayla bring it down to him at his job at Portland Pie Company. So Kayla put her 2 children in a stroller and then put the bag with Harmony's remains in it underneath the stroller and walked it down to Portland Pie Company, where Adam would keep it in the walk-in freezer, where employees were going in and out all day and where the company kept food. Adam had also thrown some condiments in the bag as well, I'm assuming to make it look like he was just bringing his lunch in every day. But usually you would put your lunch in the fridge, not the freezer. You wouldn't put condiments in the freezer either. Kayla then testified that her husband had driven a U-Haul sometime in March of 2020, and she was not allowed to go with him, but when he returned, he no longer had Harmony's remains with him. After Harmony's murder, Kayla said that Adam tried to commit suicide twice, and he was losing it. Now he thought that there were cameras and microphones and lights in their apartment, and he thought that Kayla was working with the police. He was very paranoid. Adam also thought that Kayla was cheating on him and possibly poisoning him. On March 17, 2020, Kayla had taken her 2 children and she had left Adam. He had given her 2 black eyes. Kayla would also speak about how Harmony regularly had black eyes and bruises on her face and legs. She also said that Adam would often smack Harmony in addition to punching her. But Kayla had done nothing to help her stepdaughter, and she even got angry with Uncle Kevin for contacting DCF about how Harmony was being treated. The prosecution also brought up the fact that the Montgomerys had used their SNAP benefits to pay for drugs. Apparently, their drug dealer would take their food stamp benefits in exchange for heroin or fentanyl or whatever they needed that day. As a result of this, Kayla said that her, Adam, Harmony, and the 2 boys were all eating baby food at one point. So, how they got the money to go to Burger King that morning and get 3 sandwiches? Kayla also told the jurors that Adam had worked hard to obtain custody of his daughter Harmony, and she even remembers helping him decorate her room with Mickey Mouse before she moved in. And while on the stand, Kayla said that she still cares about Adam because he is her best friend and father of her children. She's just having a hard time letting go. And even worse is the letter that Kayla had written to prosecutors while she was trying to get a deal before they knew how Harmony was murdered. In the note, she said in exchange for her testimony that would betray Adam, she wanted custody of her children, mental health care, drug rehab, and immunity for everything. Then she also wrote that she wanted an embrace, a kiss, or a chance to make love one more time to Adam. And just a side note, Kayla is actually going to be up for parole this April of 2024. So there's the possibility that she might regain custody of all 3 of her children at that time. Oh, and in case you didn't know, Kayla and Adam had a 3rd child in 2021, a daughter. So that was after Adam had already killed Harmony. Kayla decided that it was a good idea to again reproduce with that man. During cross-examination, Adam's attorneys wasted no time attacking Kayla's credibility, saying that she had lied to the grand jury twice before she had gotten a deal. Courtney Garcia, who married a childhood friend of Adam's, spoke as a witness as well. She said that she had offered the family some gas money as well as a place to stay on Thanksgiving of 2019. At the time, all 3 children were there, but Adam said something to her about how he was going to be bringing Harmony back to her mother and she would be better off there. So March 4th, 2020 is when Adam had rented the U-Haul to dispose of Harmony's remains. He had actually had his friend Travis Beach rent this U-Haul for him. So Travis was another witness who got on the stand. When Travis spoke, he said that he had gone to Adam's Union Street apartment that day in March. And when he got there, all of Adam's things were packed up in boxes, like he was actually going to be moving, though he wasn't. So this made Travis not ask any questions, and he just assumed that Adam was going to be moving because he had been having problems with DCF. Travis also testified that Adam had also said to him, "I fucked up." And Adam said this 4 or 5 times, but didn't explain any further what he meant. The next day, according to text messages on his Facebook account, Travis received a text that the U-Haul had not been dropped off at 2 p.m. as required. He sent a Facebook message to Adam asking him to drop it off. Adam replied back, "Please don't message me stuff like this on Facebook again." Travis said he was also not allowed to speak to Kayla that day. The prosecution wanted the jury to see Kayla as an abused wife and not the monster and killer that the defense was making her out to be. I think she's both, so. The prosecution called forth several witnesses who had seen Kayla with black eyes and other injuries. One witness named Roseanne Smith, who regularly brought Adam and Kayla to the methadone clinic, said that one day in March of 2021, Kayla's left eye was badly bruised and starting to swell shut. She noticed that this black eye had not been there the day before. Once they had gotten to the methadone clinic that day, Adam began to walk away from the car, and Roseanne tried to hand Kayla her phone because Kayla wanted to call for help, but Adam spotted this, and he turned around and went back to the car. Roseanne said, "I did not see Adam there. I saw pure rage walking towards me." Adam then grabbed her arm, twisted it, and pulled the phone away from her, saying, "You're not giving that phone to my wife." Roseanne said that then, when she began begging Adam for the phone, he all of a sudden softened. The anger in his face went away, but she had been very frightened by the anger that she had seen. During the trial, jurors were shown part of the ceiling from the Families in Transition shelter in Manchester, where Adam had been accused of hiding Harmony's body. The state said that when investigators returned to the room the family had stayed in at the shelter 2 years later, they saw deep bloodstains in the ceiling vent and smelled decomposition. On the ceiling tile, surrounding Harmony's blood, all that was left of her were Adam's fingerprints and palm prints. Nicole Giles was another witness who actually had to be arrested to be brought in to testify. She was worried for her and her children's safety and did not want to be seen in connection with the case, so the judge ordered that her face not be on camera. Nicole had lived at the Families in Transition shelter at the same time the Montgomerys did in 2020. She said that whenever she had seen Kayla there, she had bruises on her body and black eyes. When she had asked Kayla about these bruises, Kayla would say she had either fallen over or the boys had hit her with a toy or one of their bottles. But when Kayla was alone with Nicole, she would tell her that they were actually from Adam and that she wanted to leave, but she was scared. Tara Hilbert, the building manager at the Union Street apartment where Adam and Kayla and the 2 boys had gone to live after Harmony's murder, testified as well. She said that when she had befriended the Montgomerys, she learned that Kayla was abused by Adam. In March of 2021, when Kayla had been badly hurt by Adam, black eyes and a bloodied nose, Tara had helped Kayla and the children relocate to a hotel. Tara also said that during one conversation with Adam, he said that he missed his daughter Harmony. And when Tara asked him where his daughter was, he said that she was in Lowell, Massachusetts with her mother. And another witness was named Rebecca Maines. She was friends with Adam because they were both part of the sober community, she said. Prior to 2021, she said they were best friends and they often traveled places together. Adam informed Rebecca that he had dropped Harmony off with Crystal because she continually kept shitting her pants. He said that he had also tried to reach out and see Harmony since then, but Crystal would not allow him to. Rebecca recalled an incident where Adam spoke about Harmony's bathroom accidents, and he said that he would put her in the corner for it for hours because she was doing it on purpose. And when Adam spoke to Rebecca about Harmony one time, he said that he hated her to his core because she reminded him of her mother, Crystal. And there was also a recording of one of Adam's jail calls played for the jury. In it, he said, "The investigators are nut jobs, and the search for Harmony is just a waste of taxpayers' money." The defense would call forth no witnesses, and prior to the jury's deliberations, Adam's defense team tried to get Kayla's testimony excluded from the jury deliberations. The defense motioned to dismiss the remaining 3 charges that Adam had not pled guilty to, saying that Kayla had no credibility and there was no evidence as to who had killed Harmony. The judge, however, felt differently, and he denied this motion. In closing arguments, Adam's defense team said that he had moved Harmony's body and hid it in the very misguided belief that if he didn't, his family would be torn apart. The defense also tried to humanize and soften the jury's view of Adam, whom the state would call an enraged tyrant. The defense then said the allegation that Adam beat his child for days and then on December 7th, 2019, for hours is just crazy. No, it's crazy to do it. It's not crazy to think that he did it. They went on to say, Adam did some very bad things, but he did not kill his daughter. Then when it was the prosecution's turn to give their closing argument, with anger in his voice, prosecutor Ben Agati said that Adam believes that Harmony's life and death were a waste of time. He went on to say, on the day of Harmony's death, all he had is his car, his rage, and his fists. After he learned Harmony soiled herself in the car, he took her life in rage over a bathroom accident. Ben Agati continued on, saying to the jurors, the only parts of Harmony that are left will be with you in that deliberation room, on that pink toothbrush, and on that part of the bloodied ceiling tile. And the other parts of her body, her torso, her face, her eyes, that smile, only the defendant, as we sit and stand here today, knows where they are. He can't afford to say where they are, because the evidence contained on them will show that he caused her death. So she will not get the burial that she deserves. On February 22nd, 2024, Adam Montgomery was found guilty on all of his charges: second-degree murder, second-degree assault, tampering with physical evidence, abuse of a corpse, and intimidating a witness. After Adam's verdict was read, Harmony's mother, Crystal, said she was very relieved, but she stressed that the case is not over yet, not until Harmony is found. Crystal also said that Adam is manipulative and tries to have a tough guy image at all times. She said that when she found out she was having a little girl, she was very scared because Adam hates women. Crystal, who is now sober, asked a New Hampshire court to officially declare Harmony is dead. Crystal is also now trying to remove Montgomery as Harmony's last name and have her be known as Harmony Renee Sori. If her body is found, she plans to cremate her. And lead detective John Dunleavy said that while he considered the conviction a win, it did not feel complete since Harmony Montgomery was still missing. He said, "We didn't find her. I will be on the job for some time. I still have about 15 years left. And as long as I'm a police officer, I'm going to continue to look for her." And although Adam did not attend his own trial, New Hampshire state law mandates that he must attend his sentence hearing, which is going to be held on May 9th in Concord, New Hampshire. He will likely be facing 35 years to life on the second-degree murder charge alone. And that would be served consecutively with armed criminal charges, for which he's already serving at least 33 years. So finally, after over 4 long years, Harmony has gotten justice. Now, it's just a shame that Kayla Montgomery didn't get charged with more, because she was absolutely guilty as well. I wish that Adam could show one tiny bit of sorrow or regret for what he did to his poor, sweet, innocent daughter. But not once has he shown that he cared about her even one bit. And now that he's been convicted on all counts and will most likely be in jail for the rest of his life, he still has not come out to say where he put her body. I can't believe that someone so evil was ever even given custody of a child. Personally, I would have seen that teardrop tattoo and been like, nope, you're not getting any child, ever. So many mistakes were made by many people around her, and Harmony ended up losing her life for it. But at least, now she has some sort of justice. So if you do like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below, and turn on those notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is 2 to 3 times every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care, guys. Bye.
A story that has shaken the New Britain community and has left so many with questions. And tonight, the Beehive Bridge is lit up in blue in honor of that little girl and she is being remembered by so many loved ones.
Jacqueline Annette Torres Garcia was born on January 29, 2013, in New Britain, Connecticut, to her mother, Carla Garcia, and her father, Victor Torres. She was affectionately nicknamed Mimi, and she had 4 younger siblings. Jacqueline was a bright and happy young girl who had a great sense of humor, and she loved to dance. She was said to be a natural caregiver who always looked out for the ones that she loved. Child Services first became involved in Jacqueline's life at the time that she was born. That's because her 16-year-old mother, Carla, was currently residing at a detention facility, and her father was serving time in jail. So the infant was placed into the care of her paternal grandmother, Patricia Delgado. Jacqueline's legal guardianship would be transferred to her shortly after. In August of 2013, Child Services closed out the case, and Jacqueline and her younger sister would remain in their grandmother's custody for the next 9 years. During this time, the 2 girls had structure, love, and a caring family. But then in May of 2022, Jacqueline and her sister were given back to their biological parents. Carla and Victor were broken up at this point and were separately fighting to regain custody of their children. After a review of the family's history and current circumstances was done, as well as an interview with Jacqueline and her sister, it was determined that both parents were capable of caring for them, and they were granted joint custody. The children then moved in with their mother, and Victor would see them on the weekends. Jacqueline's grandmother, Patricia, said that she felt like DCF snatched the girls away from her. She claimed that they had forced her to hand the children over, and when she went to court, they told her that she had no rights to even see them any longer. This is something that Carla took advantage of, and she soon began denying Patricia any time with her granddaughters. Though according to DCF, Patricia had agreed to this custody change. Now, it wasn't long until Jacqueline's father, Victor, claimed that Carla stopped honoring their custody agreement, and she wouldn't let him see his daughters. So he had taken her to court in 2023. But it doesn't seem like anything came of this, and shortly after, Victor moved to Florida, where he bought a house, started a business, and began dating someone new. By this time, Carla was also dating someone new. His name was Jonathan Nanita, and the pair would go on to have 3 more children together. Then in September of 2022, Child Services opened up another investigation into the family. This time, it was in regards to one of Jacqueline's younger siblings. However, it was quickly closed out after the agency determined there was not enough evidence to support the allegations of CA and neglect. They determined that Jacqueline and her siblings were safe at the time, and visible to the community, as the older children were attending school. After that, Child Services noted that Jacqueline attended 3 doctor's appointments, with the last being in May of 2024. Then in June, the family moved to Farmington, Connecticut. And just days later, Carla was awarded sole custody of her daughters. This was even though the mother had been arrested and convicted in 2019 of third-degree assault, for which she'd received a suspended sentence of 2 years of probation. This came after Carla repeatedly punched her ex-girlfriend in the face and grabbed her by the hair. But neither the family's history with DCF or Carla's criminal history was discussed in court when the decision was made to give her children back. And the hearing only lasted 10 minutes. From that point on, whenever Victor or one of his family members would ask about Jacqueline, Carla would tell them that she was either sleeping or she was busy. This soon changed, and the mother started telling people that Jacqueline was staying with a friend and attending a different school. That's when relatives began to suspect that something was seriously wrong. And when they started to reach out to Carla for answers, she blocked all of their phone numbers. She also took her other daughter out of school and began lying to people saying that they had moved out of state. In August of 2024, on the day that Jacqueline was supposed to start 6th grade, Carla sent an email over to the school district informing them that they had moved and she now intended on homeschooling her children. In January of 2025, Child Services opened up yet another investigation into the family after they had received allegations in regards to one of Jacqueline's younger siblings. This time when they spoke with Carla, she told them that Jacqueline was staying out of state with a relative and she was being homeschooled. Child Services would later receive a video phone call from a person that Carla claimed was Jacqueline, but it wasn't, because she had actually been dead since the fall of 2024. Child Services didn't know this though, so in March of 2025, they closed out the case with no additional concerns. It wouldn't be until October 8th that anyone realized that Jacqueline was dead. It was on that day that New Britain police received a phone call regarding suspicious activity at an abandoned home. The woman who called in said that she had been with Carla's ex-boyfriend, Jonathan Nanita, on either September 29th or September 30th. He told her he needed to pick something up, then drove to a wooded area near a cemetery where he grabbed a tote. He put it in his trunk, and from there, he drove to an abandoned building located at 80 Clark Street in New Britain. The woman told authorities that the tote smelled bad, and when she later thought about it, she realized that it likely contained a body. Police would go out to the abandoned home, and they would indeed find a plastic tote which contained human remains. These were later identified as belonging to Jacqueline Torres Garcia. The medical examiner said that the little girl had been dead for as long as a year. He stated that there were no signs of recent trauma or injuries to her body that would have contributed to her death, though Jacqueline did appear to be very malnourished. Her official cause and manner of death are still pending. However, authorities have said that they believe Jacqueline suffered prolonged abuse and malnourishment prior to her death.
What police revealed to us is that she was starved and abused.
Right.
What goes through your heart as a family member?
Disgusted. I'm thinking, what was this little girl thinking? Her last moments, how fearful she was. When I found out that Carla had custody of Mimi, my jaw dropped, and I said, how?
Despite having gone on family vacations with one another, the family drifted apart in recent years. And Yoxie says Carla didn't let many people into Jacqueline Torres's life.
Sadly, I just found 2 pictures in my phone. She wasn't around our family.
Between that, being removed from New Britain schools, and Jacqueline's father moving out of state, Yoxie says that's how she believes the girl's disappearance went unnoticed since her death about a year ago.
I would have definitely asked questions. I would have made phone calls. I would have done anything that was in my power to find out what was going on.
Jacqueline's mother, Carla Garcia, and her boyfriend, Jonathan Nanita, were then arrested and charged with murder in connection to the little girl's death. They were also charged with first-degree unlawful restraint, risk of injury to a child, tampering with physical evidence, conspiracy to commit murder with special circumstances, intentional cruelty to a child, and improper disposal of a dead body. They are each being held on a $5 million bond. Additionally, Carla's sister, who was also named Jacqueline Garcia and had previously been living with the family, was arrested. She was charged with child cruelty, first-degree unlawful restraint, and risk of injury to a child. She's being held on a $1 million bond. Now, Aunt Jacqueline had lived with the family for some time. She'd also recently spent time behind bars after being found guilty of risk of injury to a child. Back in February of 2022, Aunt Jacqueline brought her baby to the emergency room with a broken leg. The child had other injuries too, including hemorrhages to her right eye, bruises to her jaw and forehead, a healing fracture of her left femur, and healing fractures of her ribs. Those injuries were believed to be between 7 and 11 weeks old. A healing fracture to her right arm was estimated to be between 2 and 4 weeks old, and the baby also had a healing skull fracture. Aunt Jacqueline claimed that the child had just fallen off the bed though, and when she was asked about the healing injuries, she said that her 2-year-old son and the baby's cousin sometimes played rough with her, but she had never seen them hurt the infant. However, in text messages to a friend, Aunt Jacqueline claimed that she actually hated her daughter's father, and that the infant wouldn't stop crying, so she would sometimes shake her, choke her, and throw her to make her stop. When police then spoke with the baby's father, he would say that Aunt Jacqueline often went to her sister's house where she would drink in excess. He additionally admitted that the baby had gotten hurt one time when he and Aunt Jacqueline were fighting over the infant. He was also later charged with risk of injury to a child. Aunt Jacqueline had been sentenced to serve 10 years in prison, but that sentence ended up getting suspended, and instead she was ordered to serve only 18 months. In the end, she would only serve 8.5 months. Karla's ex-boyfriend, Jonathan Nanita, also had a criminal history. He was sentenced to less than a year in jail after he pleaded guilty in 2022 to reckless endangerment and interfering with an officer. Apparently, he had been driving in the car with Karla when he was stopped. He then took off from that stop and struck an officer with his vehicle. Now, during his interrogation with investigators, Jonathan initially denied knowing anything about the plastic bin which contained Jacqueline's remains. He also said that Karla had kicked him out of the house in August and he was now homeless. Eventually, Jonathan would admit that he had driven to Karla's apartment along with another woman, placed the tote containing Jacqueline's remains inside of it in his vehicle, then driven to the cemetery. This was all on Karla's instructions. Jonathan claimed that he couldn't find a good spot at the cemetery to leave the bin, so instead, he put it back in his vehicle and drove to 80 Clark Street. There, he dropped it off in the backyard, but insisted that he had no idea what was inside. However, when he was later asked if he knew that Jacqueline was inside the tote, he nodded yes. Jonathan told authorities that he had just recently been released from prison, and he had been coming and going from Karla and her sister's apartment in Farmington. While at the home, Jonathan said that he saw blood on the walls leading up the stairs, and when he asked the woman what had happened, they said they didn't know. He also noticed that everyone was there except for Jacqueline, which made him panic and leave the apartment. However, he returned the next day, and when he did, the blood had been cleaned up. According to Jonathan, he had not seen Jacqueline in 1 to 2 years, though that would later change, and he would say that he had seen her in either January or March of 2025. He insisted that until he moved that tote, he had no idea what had happened to her. When police later tested a pair of Jonathan's jeans that had a red, blood-like substance on the thighs, it tested positive for blood. Detectives also found small white granules of a powder-like substance on the floor of his vehicle. This same white powder was additionally found inside the tote containing Jacqueline's remains. When Jacqueline's mother, Karla, was first interviewed by detectives, she would tell them that her daughter was fine and just visiting a friend. Then she said that her children were all with a family member at another home in New Britain. When police told her that they had already gone to that address and all the children were accounted for except for Jacqueline, she acted surprised. They then asked her what her relationship with Jonathan was like, and she said that they had broken up 8 months prior because he was extremely controlling and abusive. But she had always been much too afraid of him to ever report it to police. Then she said that Jonathan had actually come to her house on October 8th. He was asking for money, acting nervous, and had taken one of her children's iPads. When Karla was confronted with what Jonathan had told them about the tote containing Jacqueline's remains, she denied knowing anything at first, but later said that it must have been Jonathan who had done it. Karla claimed that she had never reported her suspicions of her ex-boyfriend out of fear of retaliation. Then she told detectives a story about a fight that had happened between her and her 11-year-old daughter Jacqueline the previous October. This story, however, has been disputed by the medical examiner who found no signs of injury or trauma to the young girl's body. According to Karla, Jacqueline had become upset when she found out that her mother was expecting yet another child. So she had pushed her down the stairs in their home, causing them to both fall. This made Jonathan very upset with Jacqueline, so he stomped on her head a couple of times, then dragged her towards the basement where he threw her down those stairs. Karla said that her daughter was crying and bleeding, but she didn't step in to do anything to help her. Sometime in the night, Jacqueline had died, and Jonathan was the one who found her not breathing. He then moved her body to the basement. Karla insisted that she had never gone down there and seen her daughter's body, but when the smell got so bad they couldn't stand it, they began staying with family and friends as well as staying in hotels. In the summer of 2025, they had moved to a new home on Tremont Street in New Britain. Jonathan had transported Jacqueline's body in the back of his car. Carla insisted she had nothing to do with it. Now, between September of 2024 and the time that Jacqueline's remains were found, police had been called out to the family's residence numerous times due to excessive noise from Carla and Jonathan fighting. In September of 2024, a neighbor had called police after she heard Carla threatening to break someone's neck. A few months later, the same neighbor contacted authorities again, saying that she had heard someone scream and something heavy fall. She then heard Carla yell something to the effect of "stop" or "don't." But not once during any of these visits did Carla ever tell authorities that she felt like she was in danger or that her daughter was dead.
Everything okay?
Yeah,
We had a call. There's a lot of noise coming from your apartment.
they're always calling.
Okay.
Everything's good though.
Everyone's alright?
Yes.
Is anyone else home with you?
Just the babies and my boyfriend.
Okay. Your boyfriend here?
Yeah.
Can I speak with him?
Babe! Babe! They just want to make sure everything's okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm just pregnant. Just moods, you know.
Hello?
He's coming up.
Oh, okay. Mind if I come in some more and heat you up?
Huh?
You mind if I come in some more and heat you up? Hey, it's going. Good. We just got a call.
I'm good.
And stuff like that. Everyone's okay?
Yeah, my wife's pregnant, so she just be having mood swings. I'll be trying to calm her down.
Things happen.
I'm at the end, so it's difficult.
Alright, well, I haven't met you guys real quick. I'm just going to write your names down and say I spoke with you and get out of here, okay?
Okay. Say hi, baby.
Everything's okay. It's okay. How old are you?
Say 3.
3? 2? One more? There you go.
Say 3.
Just want to know we're okay.
It's okay.
Okay. What's your name?
Carla. What a K.
K.
RLA.
And Carla, what's your last name?
Garcia.
And your birthday, Carla.
6196.
Yeah, sir, what's your name?
Jonathan. Jon is what I mean. Jonatan.
And Jonathan, what's your last name?
Nanita. Nanita.
And your birthday?
9/29, 1995.
Okay. How long you guys been staying here?
Almost a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Things are good?
Yeah.
Sometimes the walls are, you live in apartments, walls
Yeah,
are
we
thin
always live
sometimes.
with me. They've been complaining since we first moved here, so.
Okay, something
We're
for
planning on moving.
Okay.
We're actually moving.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes with apartments, you really can't choose your neighbors, right? So if someone is living one way, someone lives another way, and sometimes it just clashes. So just give me a minute, okay?
All right.
Let's hang on with them real quick.
Watch your ear.
What's your names?
You guys have any other problems with any neighbors or anything like that? It's just like noise stuff.
Well, just next door, but that's it.
Carla,
Yeah.
Karla.
You guys been there for a little bit?
96.
Yeah.
Last name Nanita. Nanita. First name Jonathan. Come spell.
Is this your only daughter? You guys got other
Oh,
kids?
sorry.
One on the way. I have a son.
Son too.
He's upstairs. He's 1. Oh, he just turned 2. I'm sorry.
Keep you guys busy.
Oh yeah.
You guys got a place you're going to?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Where you guys moving to?
We're gonna move to New Britain.
Yeah.
It's better. Well, we came from New Britain. It's better over there because we don't have no complaints at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit different area. People are a little less likely to want to call for some noise and stuff like that. So.
Right.
Have a guy. We're out of here.
Thank you so much.
When a photo of Jacqueline was shown to Carla, in which she was clearly malnourished and lying on the floor restrained by zip ties, the mother first claimed to have no involvement in restraining Jacqueline. But then she admitted to having cut the zip ties off of her on a couple occasions. That soon changed into Carla admitting that she had actually put the restraints on her daughter herself, but only after being told to do so by Jonathan. Eventually, the mother admitted that both she and Jonathan would mistreat her daughter together when she misbehaved. Usually it was because she was doing things that she wasn't supposed to be doing, like striking other children, going into cars, and having 5 boyfriends. Carla ultimately confessed to police that she and her boyfriend had stopped feeding Jacqueline 2 weeks prior to her death. Carla also said that it was actually her sister, Jacqueline Garcia, who had sent her the picture of Jacqueline laying on the floor, restrained by zip ties. And Aunt Jacqueline later admitted to taking the photo sometime in the summer of 2024. Aunt Jacqueline would tell detectives that when her niece acted out, she would be beaten. She was also denied food and water and often left in the corner of the room, zip-tied. Aunt Jacqueline insisted that she had never taken any part in her niece's mistreatment, and sometimes she even tried to bring her water. But she had been the one who had taken the picture, and Carla insisted that her sister also mistreated Jacqueline, one time even cutting off the young girl's long hair. According to one of Aunt Jacqueline's friends, she had told her that Carla would whip her daughter with anything: phones, belts, brooms, whatever she could get her hands on. She stated that Carla hated her daughter and didn't want her because she didn't like her father, Victor. Carla was also reportedly jealous of Jacqueline's looks and the fact that Victor loved his daughter and not her. Aunt Jacqueline told investigators that Carla informed her that her niece had died on September 19, 2024. She additionally said that the 11-year-old had attempted to run away from home twice in the past, but a family member had caught her each time. Her punishment was being beaten and tied up with zip ties. Aunt Jacqueline had moved out of the home in mid-August of 2024, and she had moved back in the following August. At the time that she had left the residence, she claimed that her niece was extremely skinny and she knew she was going to die. Yet she had done nothing to help her. Even after Jacqueline's death, her mother Carla continued to collect food stamps in her name and collect child support too. She would also send the girl's father, Victor, photos of items such as clothing and shoes that she said Jacqueline wanted, but she would just pocket that money. A former neighbor of Carla's named Kimberly White said that she'd been friends with Carla, and they often texted one another. Apparently, Carla had been planning on going on Kimberly's podcast prior to her arrest on October 12th. Carla told Kimberly that she'd failed her daughter, and she now wanted to speak about the situation.
Kimberly White says she met Garcia earlier this year when their children started to play together.
Really good friends, like bread and butter.
White says her conversations with Garcia were brief and friendly, usually about the kids. When human remains of a girl were discovered on Clark Street, White heard Garcia could be involved.
She owed me some answers because I've never even met this little girl.
The two were talking about doing an episode for White's podcast. A search warrant from Farmington Police reveals Garcia told a detective she was about to go on a podcast prior to her arrest on October 12th, and she wrote notes of the story on her cell phone so she could reference them for the podcast. Before the recording, Garcia sent White a text message that NBC Connecticut obtained a copy of. We then verified Garcia's phone number with the family member. The text read in part, quote, "I want to apologize to my daughter for failing her as a mother and being afraid to speak to anyone about the situation." Another part said, quote, "There's nothing in this world that will ever make me accept the fact that she's no longer here. My heart is broken for her siblings, her father, her family. I'm sorry." White says she and a friend went upstairs to do the episode. Garcia ended up backing out of doing the podcast, but White says she still wanted answers.
We just started doing a bad cop, good cop type of thing, asking her questions. And that's when I was aware that the little girl was dead since September of 2024. So my best friend was like, well, nobody ever wondered where the little girl was when they came over. So she basically said she had somebody pretending to be her daughter. At that point, me and my best friend looked at each other like, yeah, no, there's something wrong.
Garcia was arrested the evening of October 12th, charged with murdering her own daughter. Looking back, White says she shouldn't have let Garcia watch her son.
I just wish that I had a better judge of character because I couldn't do nothing but pray because of my son. Like, You know, my son was up there. Anything could have happened to my baby. She didn't seem like a monster. She seemed like a high-spirited young lady.
Jacqueline's paternal grandparents, Patricia and Felix Delgado, said that they had long fought for custody of their granddaughter, and now want her memory to be honored with love, not pain. Her grandfather, Felix Osorio, said, "She was my love. She was everything for me. She was happy all the time, real happy. She liked to play." Felix said that he had not physically seen his granddaughter in 2 years, and that her mother would always make excuses to his son, Jacqueline's father, about why his granddaughter couldn't FaceTime him. Online petitions have been started demanding Mimi's Law, which would require that mandatory annual in-person welfare checks be done for homeschooled children. It also asks that DCF workers start wearing body cameras and that they prohibit convicted abusers from cohabitating with minors. Following the discovery of Jacqueline's body, people began leaving flowers, candles, and stuffed animals outside the abandoned home where her body was found. There is also now a petition to demolish the house and build a memorial park in Jacqueline's honor, where, quote, Mimi's memory can live on forever. On October 25th, 2025, loved ones came out to say goodbye to the 11-year-old. A horse-drawn carriage was seen carrying Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia's casket. The procession started at the Eric Hansen Funeral Home in New Britain and carried on to a church near Stanley Street.
I understand.
And y'all know the gate was open.
Why haven't y'all been out with the people around this neighborhood looking with the kids? We already told on camera.
I see y'all on no cameras last night. I didn't even see y'all out here praying with them people. Them people was out to take care of my nephew. Not supposed to happen.
So Orrin and Orson West were not the names that the boys were born with. Orrin was actually born as Sincere Pettis, and Orson was born as Classic Pettis. Sincere was born on August 4th, 2016, and then 10 months later, Classic was born on June 11th, 2017, to their biological parents, Ryan Dean and Charles Pettis. Orrin and Orson also loved playing with toy cars and trucks, and they liked superheroes. They were said to be very happy and had the biggest and best smiles. On November 13th, 2016, Orrin, or Sincere, since his name hadn't been changed yet, was rushed to Memorial Hospital because he had been crying uncontrollably. His mother, Ryan, would say that she had been at work all day and the little boy's father had been watching him. When she returned home, she noticed that her baby's cry was not normal, and she said she immediately had taken him to the hospital. It was discovered that baby Sincere had a broken leg. And since it's very difficult for an infant that little to get a broken leg, the hospital staff became suspicious and Child Protective Services became involved. So even though Ryan had told the hospital as well as Child Protective Service staff that she had not been home when Sincere had gotten injured, they still took the little boy out of her custody and placed him into emergency foster care. However, CPS left the boy's other 2 siblings in the home, so they deemed the house as kind of safe then. A month later, Orrin was placed in an established foster care home in Bakersfield, run by LaToya Spry. Ryan visited her son every week, and she tried to get custody back. However, in June of 2017, when she had Orson, or Classic, he was also taken away from her after only 11 days and placed into the same foster home as his brother, Orrin. But then in 2018, both boys would be removed from that foster home after the foster mother's daughter had gone to school with a big scrape on her leg, and they feared abuse. There were never any criminal charges placed against this foster mom, but the boys who were 1 and 2 at the time were placed in the foster home of Trezell and Jacqueline West. Now, Trezell and Jacqueline, or Jackie for short, for some reason at this time decided to change the boys' names to Orrin and Orson. Trezell and Jacqueline also had 2 biological children as well as 2 adopted children. And the family lived at an apartment in the Casa Loma Apartments in Bakersfield, California. Once Orrin and Orson had moved into the West's home, That's when their biological mother, Ryan, said that she had seen noticeable changes in the boys, such as weight loss and scratches to their bodies. So in November of 2018, Ryan had written to the courts expressing her dissatisfaction with the boys' placement in the West's home. She was worried they were not receiving proper care there, and she wanted custody back of her sons. She had even finished taking the required parenting classes. However, nobody seemed to listen to the distraught mother. Trezell and Jackie West would be allowed to adopt the boys in 2019, and Ryan says that she was not notified when this happened, nor was she ever notified that the boys' names were changed. Apparently, according to Jackie, the boys' birth fathers had given up their parental rights. Shortly after, in September of 2020, the Wests would move from their apartment in Bakersfield to a small one-family house with a fenced-in yard in California City. California City is about 60 miles east of Bakersfield, and it's considered to be part of the Mojave Desert. Now, Ryan had only become aware that the Wests had adopted her sons when the boys were reported missing one day. After she had heard, Ryan said she went right to Trezell and Jackie's house to ask them what had happened, but as she said, there was no emotion on their faces. So Orrin and Orson West had been reported as missing on December 21st, 2020, when Trezell said that he had gone outside to chop some firewood, and the boys went out alongside with him to play with some chalk. Then around 4:20 p.m., Trezell would take the firewood inside to put near the fireplace. He then went right back outside. He insisted he was only inside for a few minutes. However, the boys were now gone, and the gate to the fence was open. Orrin and Orson, at 3 and 4 years old, were curious boys, and Trezell thought that maybe they had gone to explore the field that was adjacent to their house. However, they weren't there, so Trezell went into the house to tell Jackie what had happened. He asked her if she had seen them, and when she said she had not, Trezell went back outside, jumped into his van, and searched around the block for the boys. Trezell knew they could not be far, as he had only been inside for a very brief amount of time. However, they were nowhere to be seen. The local police department was then called, and they arrived at the scene at 4:52 p.m., followed by the sheriff's search and rescue team and a California Highway Patrol helicopter. News of the boys' disappearance spread quickly, and droves of volunteers showed up to help look for them. Some would start searching in the house itself, while others would start searching the backyard and surrounding areas. Others went door to door to ask neighbors if they had seen anything. Police even brought in canines to search for the boys' scent. However, the police dogs only tracked their scent inside the house, not outside. The extensive search had turned up nothing by the end of the day, and the following day, Trezell and Jackie were brought in for questioning. They were said to be cooperative with investigators, and both were given polygraphs, though those results have never been made public. During his interview with police, Trezell told them that the gate to the yard had been closed to keep the dogs in the yard. However, he had found it open, and at the time, he thought that maybe it was his mistake and he had forgot to shut it. When police spoke with Jackie, she told them that she thought the boys had gone through the backyard and taken off. However, police told her that this was not possible because they had discovered no child-sized footprints in the dirt, anywhere in the yard. Law enforcement also issued a search warrant for the West's home, and they collected several brown bags worth of evidence. The police also impounded their van and seized all their electronics. Search parties were out looking everywhere for the two boys, but the Wests, however, were not part of the search at all. Then on December 23rd, 2020, the Wests would come outside to speak to the media, and they would tell them that the police had told them to stay inside, and that's why they were not participating in the searches. They also took this time to beg for the public's help.
Went down this street, I turned my light on, I searched, I called their names. Talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there, he didn't see me. So then I came home and I told my wife we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help, we gotta get going. So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there, and we wanted to keep searching. But everybody came out in droves, and I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching. and we appreciate it. And nobody ever could tell. We could never talk to anybody, and that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call. Let somebody know.
Call the cops. Call the city police department. Call them and let them know what you've seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious, okay? They are going to be here in this area. And I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy. I just want to know if make sure. That's it. Because I don't. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, this is the first time we're hearing from you guys, and I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I can't even fathom it. For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved. We just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys, and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry because we were entrusted with her children, and they came to us, and they became our children, and we named them. And they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys are doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense as part of the investigation. So that's pretty much it.
Have you guys, you talked to the police all last night?
Yes.
So you guys willfully gave them your
everything.
Technology,
yes.
The car.
Yes.
How did they get a search warrant? Did you guys?
I don't see why they got one, but they got one.
Yeah,
we would have let them take
one,
anything. We would have let them take everything. We let them come in and search with us. We asked them to come do that.
What did they take?
Just tech. And that's it. Like our phones.
From the house, though, they
should have been out there the first day. Not right now.
Oh, well, I guess, should I answer that? Or?
Answer it to us, yeah.
Okay. So, into the, okay, and I guess, I don't even know.
I see. Yeah, we seriously felt like we needed to be out here. We did. Again, we were told the best are out here looking already. Just to stay put, they have more questions. There was literally a cop with us the whole time in there.
He had sitting down. We would ask, can we go help? They had to sit down.
Said nope.
He said, no, we got the best out there.
So
we need
you guys
here in case we have more questions.
I don't want you guys thinking we didn't try. We actually looked before we called the police.
Yes.
And that night, the FBI would dig in the West's backyard to see if they could uncover any evidence. However, there was nothing. On top of the already strange fact that there were no child-sized footprints seen in the dirt anywhere near the house, police also found that neighbors had a camera that had recorded the West's back and front yard, and two little boys had never been seen leaving it. In fact, none of the neighbors had ever seen two little boys living there. So with all of this information, neighbors began to voice their suspicions of the Wests. They were harassed by neighbors, a rock was thrown through their window, and a sign was even placed in their yard saying, "Where are the boys?" By now, the West's 4 other children had been taken into Child Protective Services. With all the harassment, Trezell and Jackie soon left their house in California City and went back to Bakersfield, where they had just come from, to hide out with Jackie's mom. People continued to vandalize the West's home in California City, and some even broke in to see if they could find any evidence on their own as to where the boys had gone. So according to the security camera footage that police had obtained from neighbors of the Wests, on the day that Orrin and Orson had disappeared, you could see Trezell in the backyard, and at 4:20, he goes into the house. From 4:21 p.m. to 4:32 p.m., lights were going on and off in the house, presumably looking for the boys there. Then at 4:33, Trezell goes outside and gets into his van to go search for the boys. But what is odd is that he doesn't get in the driver's side. He gets in the passenger side and crawls over to the driver's side. He then takes off, but returns only a few minutes later at 4:39 p.m., so not much of a search was done. And then from 4:40 to 4:52 p.m., Trezell just stands in the driveway waiting for police, not looking at all for the boys. And Jackie is never seen leaving the house. With two small children like that missing, you think you would be outside immediately in a panic looking for them. On top of that, Trezell stood in the driveway for 12 minutes. He had only searched for the boys for 6 minutes. So he stood in the driveway, waiting, doing nothing for double the time that he had searched for them. A neighbor had also found some footage of 2 days before the boys disappeared, of the family getting in the van to go somewhere. However, Orrin and Orson were nowhere to be seen. In fact, the neighbor could find no video footage portraying the two little boys at any time since the family had moved in. The West were still maintaining their innocence, and volunteers were still searching everywhere for the boys. A $20,000 reward was offered. However, this would later go up to over $100,000, as more money was donated by businesses, churches, and the city. And on December 29th, just 8 days after Orrin and Orson had disappeared, police came out publicly and said that they believed there was foul play, given the evidence that they had found, the evidence that was not made public. On the night of January 25th, 2021, a small group of community members gathered near the Aspen Avenue home the West had lived at to hold a candlelit vigil for Orrin and Orson.
Keisha Stevenson, a family friend and advocate for the West Boys, was one of the many people who attended the candlelight vigil Wednesday afternoon. She says she thought the family would have an answer as to where the boys are way before the 2-year mark. However, she and the boys' biological family still remain hopeful ahead of the trial.
I'm the one that leads the prayer, so it's the 21st, and every 21st of the month we try to keep prayer going because we know prayer changes things. So we just keep bombarding heaven. We want justice, justice, justice. We want the babies brought home. We want to know where the boys are so they can have a proper burial.
Stevenson says throughout this journey, they have been the voice of the West Boys and will continue searching for answers until justice is served.
Months and months would go by with no sign of the boys, and there was complete silence from Trezell and Jackie. In March of 2021, police announced that the Bakersfield Police Department would be taking on the investigation, and people wondered why. If the boys had disappeared from California City, why were the Bakersfield police taking on the case? It was soon discovered that Orrin and Orson had never even gone to California City. Then finally on March 1st, 2021, an arrest warrant was issued for Trezell and Jacqueline West. They were then spotted at a rural gas station in California, driving an RV. A Good Samaritan had actually spotted the two of them and called the police to report the tip. Not long after, Trezell and Jackie had been arrested, and from the looks of it, they were ready to go on the run because their RV was packed and ready to go. Trezell and Jackie would end up facing a total of 7 counts each. They received 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, falsely reporting an emergency, involuntary manslaughter, and conspiracy. Orrin and Orson's biological mother, along with grandmother and grandfather, filed a lawsuit for $100 million in an attempt to hold accountable those they said violated their civil rights by removing the boys from their custody, which led to their wrongful deaths. And the grandparents had actually taken parenting classes along with undergone psychological evaluations in an attempt to adopt the boys previously. However, they were ignored. A judge would dismiss the lawsuit, however, and the family would then try to file another one for $40 million. However, that as well would be dismissed. A combination of direct and circumstantial evidence would prove that the boys had actually died in September of 2020, 3 months before they had actually been reported as missing. And Jackie and Trezel's trial would begin on March 28th, 2023. And without the bodies of Orrin and Orson, prosecutors had what's called a no-body homicide, which meant an attorney would need to provide a mountain of evidence in order to prove their claims. Opening arguments were made on both sides, and according to the prosecution, Jackie and Trezel West had only adopted the boys so that they could live off of the money that they were provided to care for them. The prosecution accused the Wests of planning out the boys' death with an unknown co-conspirator who then carried out the murders. The defense, however, argued that Jackie and Trezel were simply parents of 2 missing children who were being punished by California City for being different, whatever that means. They claimed that the city found it easier to blame the parents for the death of Orrin and Orson than it was for them to continue their investigation and look down other avenues. They also said that police had not investigated other tips, such as the one saying that the boys had been spotted in Texas. It also came forward during the trial that the Wests' 4 other children had been interviewed by police shortly after Orrin and Orson had been reported as missing, and all of them would say that they had not seen the boys in weeks. The next several days, the jury would hear from several witnesses, including the 911 dispatcher and several police officers who had responded to the scene when the boys were first reported as missing.
Detective John Ryan testifying Friday that when looking for surveillance video of the West California City home, he found video of the day that Trezel and Jacqueline took their children to Trezel's parents' house on December 19th, 2020. Ryan testifying that in that video, he saw only 4 children getting into the van. During the trial, video recordings of an interview conducted between authorities and Jacqueline showed Ryan continuously accusing Jacqueline of not telling the truth. He repeatedly said he believes she knows something she isn't telling them and asks if she's trying to cover for Trezel. However, no matter how much he pushes her, Jacqueline continues to say that she's told him everything. Ryan also telling Jacqueline that they believe the couple reported the 2 boys missing out of fear because it was close to Christmas and they believe family would visit and find the boys weren't there. Jacqueline denies this in the recording, saying that the boys were in the van asleep when they took the children to Trezel's parents' home. Again, Ryan testifying, claiming he has evidence showing that's false.
Jackie and Trezel were also said to have threatened witnesses and unlawfully prevented or dissuaded witnesses from testifying. This was according to their indictment. Wanda West, the mother of Trezel, was one person who testified during the trial. She said she had not seen Orrin and Orson since February of 2020. When she had gone there in September of 2020 to visit, she had been told that the boys were at their grandmother Maria Martinez's house, and that was not an unusual thing, so she didn't question it. However, Maria did not have the boys at the time, and she would testify later that she had not seen the family much since they moved to California City. She said she had actually visited one time, but was only there to talk to Jackie, so didn't pay attention to what kids were there and what kids were not there. And multiple other relatives would also testify that they had not seen Orrin or Orson since the family moved to California City. There was a lot of evidence that police had gone on that was in the form of testimony from the West's other children, all of them being under the age of 11 at the time they had been interviewed. Shortly after Orrin and Orson had disappeared, a police officer sat down with the West's other children and asked them if they knew the difference between the truth and a lie. They all said that they did. The officer also asked them if they knew that it was wrong to kill somebody, and they all said that yes, they did. These interviews with the children had actually been the first pieces of evidence that something bad had happened to Orrin and Orson. The defense, however, argued that the children had given conflicting statements and were confused when answering questions. And they were right. The children had given some conflicting stories. Some would say that Orrin and Orson were not in the van with them when they were brought to their grandmother's. Some of them, however, said the boys were in California City with them for a few days. The children were also interviewed by a social worker in December of 2020, and these interviews were played during the trial. The oldest biological child of the Wests, who was 12 at the time of the trial, had previously told the social worker that the reason why he and his siblings had been taken away from their parents was because of Orrin and Orson. The child also told them that Orson had been taken to their grandmother Maria's house, and Orrin had choked in his sleep. This child said that one night he had heard strange noises coming from Orrin's bedroom. He then said the following day he had seen vomit coming out of his brother's nose, and his parents told him that Orrin had died. He also knew this because he had touched Orrin's body and it was cold. He confirmed that this had happened when they lived in their Bakersfield apartment. He said that his parents had told him because he was the oldest, but he needed to keep the secret, or he and his siblings would be taken away from them. In the recording, the child also told the social worker that the night Orrin died, Orson had been eating with his mouth open, so the parents took his food, put it in a blender, and then poured it into a bottle for him. Okay. The child said that Orrin then stole the bottle from Orson, and the parents encouraged Orson to punch Orrin. The child also said that when the family had moved to California City, Orrin's bed was brought with them and put into the room with the other adoptive children's beds. He said his parents were going to tell people that Orrin had been left with their grandmother. The child went on to tell the social worker that while Orson was in California City, it was only for a couple of days. He said one night he had heard a sound that sounded like a bottle of soap falling. And after that, his parents told him that Orson had gone to his grandmother's as well, and he never saw him again after that. The defense was arguing that the child had only told the social worker this due to days of interrogation, exposure to media coverage, and improper questioning. The 10-year-old son of the Wests would say that Orrin and Orson had actually gone to California City with them, but he could not remember how long they'd been there. He also said he thought he remembered Orson sleeping in a bunk bed in California City, as well as them all around the Christmas tree. The 9-year-old son didn't even recognize pictures of Orrin and Orson when the social worker showed them to him. But he said these two little boys did not move to California City with them. And the 8-year-old had very conflicting answers. He said that he remembered Orrin and Orson going to California City, but then he said he didn't remember the toddlers moving with them. The Wests, however, said their children were all lying, and they had been known to tell crazy and fabricated stories before. Of course they have. And Trezel's defense attorney even elicited testimony from some of the police officers who did not follow up on this tip. The prosecution, however, then began to highlight ways that Jackie and Trezel's stories didn't match. They said that Jackie had claimed that she had run down the street searching for the boys after they had disappeared. However, there was no video surveillance of that. In fact, call records had shown that Jackie had actually been on the phone with her eldest son for 4 to 5 minutes during that period. It was suspected that Orrin had died just before the family had moved to California City. And because they were worried that Wanda might ask questions after seeing just Orson, they decided to kill him too. This would have given the couple 3 months to discard of any bodies, evidence, change their phone numbers, and move. Wanda even testified that she and her husband Philip had been planning to visit the family in California City, and she had even sent them a few Christmas presents already. She had also asked the couple for a picture of the family in front of the fireplace, but that picture never came. The prosecution believed that this had put more pressure on the couple, which led to them reporting the boys as missing. Trezel West's attorney would argue that Trezel could not have killed the boys. Why? Because he had built them custom bunk beds, along with an entire classroom at the California City home. They have other children, okay, and just because he did that does not mean he didn't kill them. And as I had said, there apparently had been a tip made to the FBI saying that the boys had been seen in Texas. So of course, the defense was clinging to this tip. The defense maintained that there was no serious inquiry done by police if the kids really had been kidnapped. They said this had caused the investigation to be skewed from the very beginning because police had only focused in on the parents. Another thing they said that had messed with the investigation was that police kept telling people that there was no evidence of children living in the West's home in California City, which led everyone to establish their questions and investigation around this fact. However, there were multiple children items found, including diapers, toys, kids' blankets, and car seats. There were also kids' blankets and kids' toothbrushes that were never collected from the home for DNA testing. And they said there was no evidence that the West children had ever even been abused. All 4 kids had previously had their bodies examined for any bruising and scarring.
But after a 6-week trial, it took the jury only 1 hour to convict Jackie and Trezell West. They were found guilty on 5 of the 7 charges, including second-degree murder of Orrin, involuntary manslaughter of Orrin, and child cruelty for both Orrin and Orson. They were also found guilty of falsely reporting an emergency. The only charges they were not convicted on was the second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter of Orson. Prosecutors, however, announced that they will not retry the Wests on these hung charges, noting how difficult it was for the child witnesses to testify. Now, unbelievably, before sentencing, Jackie's lawyer made a plea for her client to only get probation. Yeah, for murder, probation. She said even though this was an unusual request for the conviction, her client had lost everything. Her husband, her children, her prior life. And if she had any information as to the boys' whereabouts, she would have given it at this point. Sure. Her lawyer also used the reasoning that Jackie had never had any criminal conviction before, and she had never been the subject of any Child Protection Service investigation. The judge, however, rejected this request, saying, Jacqueline West is not the victim. Let's just be clear. I'm going to sentence her to what I believe is an appropriate sentence in the eyes of the law. Jackie was then sentenced to 15 years to life plus 4 years, and Trezell was given the exact same sentence. On October 21st, 2021, the community held another candlelit vigil, this one to mark the passage of 10 months since the boys were reported as missing. A toy drive was also held in honor of Orrin and Orson for Christmas that year. And another woman named Madgenia Williams came forward and said that she has not seen her 2 sons in years. 5 years, that is. And at some point, they had been placed in the foster care of Jackie and Trezell West. She and the boy's stepfather said that Child Protective Services is not giving them any answers. And they have no idea if they're alive or not. So who knows if this is just misplaced paperwork or if something more sinister happened. Well, thank you for listening to all of Orrin and Orson's stories today. I wish we knew more about what happened to them. Were they abused prior? Did the West plan on doing this to these poor little boys? And why? There are way too many foster parents taking in children just so they can get that monthly paycheck that the government provides to take care of those children. Instead, they're using all of that paycheck on themselves and abusing and neglecting these kids. It's disgusting to think that somebody could take advantage of an already vulnerable child like that. So if you do like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And turn on your notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is 2 to 3 times every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys, bye.